It's deep question time. I often wonder what makes a musical a musical.
Now, the answer to this is incredibly complex, but short answer, a musical is anything where song is a vital part of conveying emotion and telling the story. Obviously, it's a lot more complex than that, though, so let's get into it. I like to think of all of media as being a tree, with media being the trunk and the main branches being the senses used to consume that media. So you have the sight branch, the written word, paintings, photographs. You have the sound branch, recorded music, podcasts, audiobooks. And then you have the sight and sound branch, theater, TV, film. Now, anything that uses sound can have a musical genre to it, a genre just being a category of compositional elements, in this case, using song to convey emotion and tell a story. Now, if we look at the sight sound branch, what makes theater different from TV film? Short answer, formatting and how it's being consumed by an audience, with theater requiring a live audience. Which brings us to our first debate, is virtual theater theater? Yes and no. The best way to break this down is to look at a Fake Friends production. They perform their shows on a live stream for about a week. There is editing involved, but it's all in the moment live edits. And they even interact with a live audience through social media. And then after that week is done, you can watch a version of the show on demand for another week. And that's when it becomes a pro shot. A pro shot being a pre-recorded film version of something that used to be theater. That is literally how thin the line is. Because if you watch the show 5 times in the first week, you're going to see a slightly different version of the show every single time. But if you watch it 5 times in the second week, it's going to be the same recorded version every single time. And then if you just look at theater, you can break it down into a lot of different forms. You have concerts, stand-up comedy, ballet, opera, musicals, plays. What is the difference between all of these? The line is super thin. Now, I could talk about these for literally forever, but let's focus on a play with music versus a musical versus opera. All 3 of these use music elements to tell a story. A play with music uses the music more as a framing device. In other words, you can take the music out and the storyline is still there. Both musicals and opera rely on music to convey emotion and to tell the story. The difference being on what are they relying on more, the music or the lyrics. Now, both opera and musicals require music and lyrics, but the question becomes, what is the primary ingredient in conveying the emotion and telling the story? In an opera, it's the music. The music is what is carrying that emotion and pushing the story forward. In a musical, it's primarily the text, whether that be the lyrics or the book, if it has a book. And of course, there are subcategories of musicals, just like there are subcategories of comedies, but that's like a whole other series. The important thing to note is that theater doesn't have to be a musical in the same way that a musical doesn't have to be theater.